What's up, guys? Anbraxas here, World of Warcraft Mr. Pandaria Beta. This video is going to be talking in depth about DPS Warriors' survivability and their defensive capabilities. This is going to be from a PvP standpoint. I will do stuff with PvE in the near future. And as far as Prot Warriors are concerned, you guys will have to look for my next video because I'm not going to cover Prot at the same time I'm covering the two DPS specs, just because I don't want to go respec and the video is going to get too long. So we're going to jump right into this because it's hard to keep this video short. So to talk about defensive abilities for the Warrior, things are pretty much the same for both Fury and Arms. We're going to be talking about it from the Fury standpoint just because that's what I'm the most familiar with, although I have been playing Arms a little bit more here and there. I'm most familiar with the spec. So we're going to go into our specialization. Now when you pick a specialization, Fury or Arms as a Warrior, Blizzard gives you a set amount of talents. Now I want you to go ahead and look at this book here. Anything that says the word talent underneath it is something that I picked in my talent tree. So we're going to talk about talents, glyphs, and specializations completely separately. So we're just going to go down the list in chronological order. But before we do that, let's just talk about one thing real quick. Defensive stance. Defensive stance got a minor change in the last build. Defensive stance now is a straight up 15% damage reduction off the top once you hit defensive stance. Now if you're taking a lot of damage and you're trying to keep yourself alive, you're automatically probably going to want to go in defensive stance. Just keep in mind that your rage regeneration basically drops to nothing while you're in defensive stance. It also reduces the chance of being critically hit by melee attacks by 6%. Now that does not affect any kind of magic or ranged attacks, including hunters. So keep that in mind. So now that we've talked about defensive stance, let's go into the abilities that were given to us in their specialization by itself by Blizzard. So just going down the list here, we're going to talk about Bloodlust first. Bloodthirst gives you 1% of your health back. Now, my tooltip says a little something different because I'm glyph for it. We'll get to that when I get to glyphs. But every time I use this main core ability that gives me 10 rage, I heal for 1% of my total health. So the more health you have, the more that's going to heal you. Commanding Shout. When in doubt and you need more health, definitely pop off a Commanding Shout. Increase your stamina by 10%. And it increases everybody's. But basically, let's see, I'm at 253k health. Once I pop that, I go up to 264k, 10% increase. And scrolling right along the pages, one of our first defensive abilities we come by is Die by the Sword. Now, I'm not going to get too much into the specifics, but I want you to keep in mind you can use a bunch of different abilities together. First, we have Die by the Sword. 2-minute cooldown, nothing to start up. Instant cast, increases your parry chance by 100% and reduces all damage taken by 20%. Now, the 100% parry chance means you won't be taking damage from a melee class. The 20% reduction in damage extends to anything else attacking you. So, if you go ahead and go into defensive stance and you use Die by the Sword, that is a 35% damage reduction right off the top of the bat. Now, an offensive defensive ability is Disarm. If a melee is on your back and you're trying to get away or something like that, trying to get some distance, you can disarm him. I'm going to consider that part of the defensive ability tree. You've got Hamstring. You can always slow the person down. Heroic Leap's been one of our main abilities for a long time. This is currently not glyphed. Get into that later. 45-second cooldown. Instant cast. 8 to 40 yard range, which means at the max you can jump 40 yards from whoever's attacking you, which actually takes you out of death grip range if you get to the absolute maximum distance you can, and they're not glyphed for it. So, moving on from there, we'll talk about Heroic Throw and Pummel completely separately. While they are defensive abilities, they deserve to be talked about along with the glyphs. So, Blizzard gave Arms and Fury both Intervene. So, if you've been following Warriors, in Cataclysm we had two charges, Charge and Intercept. If you were in Arms, you could use both of those. You had to be in defensive stance to use Intervene. Intervene is no longer a defensive stance only thing. It's on a 30-second cooldown, 25 yard range. You can intervene an ally, or you can intervene one of your war banners. Getting into that in just a second. So if you're trying to put your a little bit of distance between you and whoever's attacking you, probably going to want to go with that. We still have Intimidating Shouts on a 1-minute cooldown, instant cast. Fear all the enemies around you within 8 yards, and they flee for 8 seconds as long as they're not attacked. So if you're trying to get away from someone, we're going to consider that a defensive ability. Those two are talents. We're not going to talk about Pummel just yet. We're going to talk about Rallying Cry real quick. Rallying Cry is something we did have on live. I don't know why a lot of people didn't use it. A lot of warriors I saw, maybe they were just not up to par. But Rallying Cry is on a 3-minute cooldown. Instantaneously increases your maximum health pool by 20% for 10 seconds. And this is going to come up here in a few minutes when I start talking about talents. So moving right along now, Shield Wall. This is something that you have to have a shield equipped for to use in the first place. Now, to demonstrate that you don't have to be in defensive stance to use this, I am currently Fury, so I'm allowed to have my 2-handed weapon and my shield. Let's see if I can actually find my shield. We'll use this neat little feature, Glad. Alright, Gladiator Shield. So, we go ahead and equip that, and then Shield Wall becomes available to me while I am in battle stance. Now, that's particularly important because, you don't necessarily have to go to defensive stance to activate Shield Wall. Now, Shield Wall is a straight up 40% damage reduction for 12 seconds. That's magic and melee. You need to keep that in mind. And then while you have a shield equipped, you can also use Spell Reflection. Now, there is a glyph for this. We'll get into that. But basically, you can Spell Reflect an incoming magic attack. So if Mage is polymorphing you or he's about to Pyroblast you in the face, you can Spell Reflect. It's a little more survivability. Moving right along. This was pointed out to me in a comment from a previous video. I don't remember the guy's name right now, and I can't look because I am recording this live while I'm in the game. But thank you for that. I said Demoralizing Shout was changed into a banner. It's actually been worked into Thunderclap. It is called Weakened Blows. It's not Demoralizing Shout, but it does say it demoralizes the target, reducing their physical damage dealt by 10%. So that basically only affects melee. But it's still viable for defense, so if you're trying to keep yourself alive, you probably want to go ahead and put that on whoever is attacking you, as long as they're not a ranged class. And we're going to be talking about Victory Rush, but I don't want to talk about it here. I want to talk about it from the talent standpoint, so we'll skip right over that. I want to talk about the more banners real quick from a PvE perspective. Mocking banner. Now keep in mind, all three of these banners are on the same cooldown, so if you use one, you're locked out for 3 minutes. We have Mocking banner, which basically if you're in a PvE situation where you're being overwhelmed, you can just throw that down and walk away. It has just enough health where it doesn't get one shot and you can get away from them. Other than that, in a PvP situation, you probably want to use the Demoralizing banner, and you can stack this with Weakened Blows. It decreases the damage dealt by all enemies within 30 yards by 10%. That does include magic. But say it was a melee on you, you could use Demoralizing Banner and have Weakened Blows on them, and that is effectively a 20% reduction in damage from that person. Now keep in mind those are 3-minute cooldowns. And I do believe that is it before we get to the talents and glyphs. So let's go ahead. Run over talents. We're going to talk about it tier by tier. Out of the three here, I don't think Warbringer has that much impact. You only have one charge, you stun them for 3 seconds, you're in their face. If you're trying to keep yourself alive, not good. Third place for that one. We have Juggernaut. He's going to come into second place, charge every 12 seconds instead of 20. From a defensive standpoint, yes, charge every 12 seconds, but you can only charge enemies. So if you're trying to keep yourself alive, like in an arena, battleground, or raid or something like that, it's probably not the best idea to run into your enemies. However, in the case of Double Time, where it gives you 2 charges before you incur that 20-second cooldown, and I'm bringing up the cooldown for a specific reason because, as far as Theorycrafting is concerned, there's some other things I can talk about. But Double Time, basically you could put a huge distance between you and your target. I do believe charge is on a 25-yard range. So if you could potentially charge 2 targets at maximum distance, whoever is actually physically attacking you, say someone's singling you out in the BG, you could then put 50 yards of distance in between you and them, plus another 40 with Heroic Leap. You can actually cover a lot of distance in a very short amount of time. Moving on to the healing tree, we have Enraged Regeneration. Now, Enraged Regeneration is going to come in first place for me as far as survivability goes from a defensive standpoint if you're just trying to keep yourself alive, because you can trigger it with Rallying Cry. Now, remember I talked about that earlier, Rallying Cry? Rallying Cry increases your health pool by 20%. So, that's no matter what. Let's go ahead and we'll do that. 250k health just went up to 300k. If I triggered Enraged Regeneration, it would heal me instantly for 10% of that total of 300,000 health plus an additional 10% of 300,000 health over 5 seconds. You can macro it into other defensive abilities, especially if you're flag carrying or something like that. So you definitely will probably want to take that one. Second wind is not so hot if you're just talking from a survivability standpoint, simply because it doesn't even activate until you're under 35%. And you know, once you're in that range, it only takes a couple of good solid hits, and then you're in execute range. And since most classes do now have an execute, that's not such a hot idea. So then we move on to Impending Victory. Now, this is going to be my second place pick, just because it's on a 30-second cooldown. And it is possible to glyph it with something else, but you can heal yourself for 10% of your maximum health, and you can trigger that along with Rallying Cry to make that 300,000 health pool I was just talking about, and you will heal for 10% of that every time you use it. Now, if you happen to execute someone along the way, now if you're in a defensive mode, your defensive stance, you're trying to get away, chances are you aren't about to just run up and grab a kill quick so you can trigger that second heal. That's the only reason it is in second place. So try to keep yourself alive, go with Enrage Regeneration. Third tree is CCs, or not CCs, slow, stuns, disrupts, that kind of thing. Staggering Shout is good, but it falls in second place simply because it requires the target to be snared before you root them for 5 seconds, and it's on a 40-second cooldown, so whoever's attacking you needs to be hamstringed before you even do that, or someone else needs to snare them before you actually root them to be able to get away from them and keep yourself alive. So that one's going to fall in second place. First place is going to be Piercing Hell for this one because it affects all enemies in a 15-yard circle around you. And that's good because sometimes the enemies are at your side, or they're behind you, or they're in front of you. If you need to slow them down, that's the way to do it. It's probably the best way to get maximum distance between yourself and them. And we have Disruption Shout. Now, some people might argue that this should be first place or something like that. I honestly don't like this ability simply because it requires them to be casting at the exact time you trigger it, and it only locks them out for 4 seconds. So if someone's pissed off and you're at 20% health and you disrupt them, it only takes 4 seconds for them to come out and palm pyro you. So, and then we're talking about a stun tree. Now this one's a little bit more complicated. We got Blade Storm, Shockwave, and Dragon Horror. Now Blade Storm, while typically has been used as an offensive ability, it can be used as a defensive ability because it makes you immune to movement and parrying effects and loss of control of your character, aka polymorph, fear, any kind of slow, anything like that. You can also use it while you're in defensive stance. You can dodge, block, or parry while you're blade storming now. So you could use this as a prot warrior. But it's probably one of the better ways to put maximum distance in between you and the person who is chasing you. The unfortunate part about this is if you did not slow them before you blade stormed, Blade Storm only moves at the speed that you run. So they could literally just run beside you until you ran out of Blade Storm and then kill you. That's why I like to take Shockwave. Now, keep in mind with Shockwave, you need to have something like a Razor Naga, simply because Shockwave is directional. It happens in front of you. Now, it doesn't happen in front of your character, it happens in front of your face. So whatever way your character's head is turning, and let me close this for a quick second just so I can show you. You see how my character's head is actually turning? If I had this ability active right now, it would Shockwave directly to the side of me, even though I am moving... Oops. Even though I'm moving forward, it would shockwave directly to the side of me. So, if you're going to use that ability, make sure you're not keyboard turning, for sure. But it is a good one. It stuns it for 4 seconds. There is no amount of enemies attached to it, and it happens for 10 yards. So, it's pretty good. It's a little bit better than Dragon War. I'm going to put this in second place, this in first place, and Dragon Horror in third place. I put the Dragon Horror in third place because while it knocks them back and down for 3 seconds, and does damage, they basically have to be within melee range of you. They're within 8 yards, and I do believe melee range is 6 or 5, something like that. So they'll be within melee range of you, so not so hot, and it's on a 1 minute cooldown this versus 20 seconds. But there is something else you can do with it, and we'll talk about that in a second. Then we move to the actual defensive tree. I'm going to place Mass Spell Reflect at the number 1 position, because if you remember me talking about it earlier, as long as you have a shield equipped, you can use 2 Spell Reflects. They are completely independent from each other. They are not on the same cooldown, so you could Spell Reflect with your shield, the regular Spell Reflect, and then you could Mass Spell Reflect immediately afterwards, giving you 2 Spell Reflections. So that gives you a very much increased amount of survivability. So, yeah, I'm going to put that at number 1. Not only that, but it puts Spell Reflect on anybody around you, so they're immune too. And then we're going to go to Safeguard. We're not talking about Vigilance simply because it increases the damage done, and from a survivability standpoint, which is what we're theorycrafting and talking about, this is not a good idea. But Safeguard, whoever you intervene, it has to be an ally or friendly NPC, or it can be one of your own war banners. And I'm going to give a quick scenario for this real quick. It reduces the damage taken by 20% for 6 seconds. And it replaces intervene at that point. This is going to come in second place just because it's on the 30-second cooldown, and it effectively gives you the third charge, but it's only towards a friendly target, and you see Prot Warriors use that all the time in flag carrying on live right now. Now, quick scenario with this. Imagine you're on Twin Peaks, you're going in to pick up the flag, because the enemy's about to return it, the entire enemy team's in there. You drop a banner by the door, heroic leap in, grab the flag, intervene your banner. You just cleared effectively 60 yards in under a second and a half, and you're out the door already, so you got to keep that in mind. And then the level 90 talents. It's a toss-up between Stormbolt and Avatar, one for first or second place. Avatar makes you immune to movement impairing effects, but at the same time, you can still be hard CC, polymorph, stuff like that. So while you could couple it with Bladestorm or something like that to put a very large distance in between you and whoever's attacking you, the chances of you doing that aren't that great because you probably use Bladestorm as an offensive ability. So we're going to go with Stormbolt here, just because you can long range 30-yard, 30-second cooldown, stun somebody for 3 seconds, making it effective against casters and giving you 1 more CC. And then Bloodbath, we aren't going to count this as any kind of defensive ability because it only occurs for 6 seconds and reduces your movement speed by 30%. I already have 2 abilities that already do the exact same thing. And quickly going over glyphs, because I don't want this video to get too long. Glyph of Gag Order is something I always picked up. It turns your Pummel and Heroic Throw into a silent, so that effectively gives you 2 more CCs to use against a caster to keep them from hitting you. I took the Glyph of Bloodthirst because it increases your healing by 100%, making it from 1% heal to 2% of your entire life every time you Bloodthirst, and since it's on a 4.5 second cooldown, that's 2% of your life every 4.5 seconds, basically, because you're using it on cooldown. But beyond that, as far as the defensive cooldowns go, some of the good ones are only for protection, but the ones that you can pick up are the Glyph of Shield Wall, which I would pick up if you're trying to survive longer. Increases the duration, increases the amount of damage reduced by Shield Wall by 20%, making it a 50% damage reduction, but the cooldown is increased by 2 minutes. Chances are, if you have to use Shield Wall, you are about to die anyway, so increasing the cooldown isn't so bad. And then the Glyph of Spell Reflect reduces Spell Reflect from 25 seconds down to 20. It takes 5 seconds off of it, and that effectively makes you have a Spell Reflect on demand almost the entire time. When you get 1 every minute and then 1 every 20 seconds, you have plenty of Spell Reflects going around. So that's basically been it. I just want to show some of these abilities quickly that you can put together. This is, I guess you could call it my defensive one-shot macro. It would be Rallying Cry if I had Enrage Regeneration, that'd be up, and then Shield Wall, Mass Spell Reflect if something was incoming, and Die by the Sword if I was fully glyphed and had Demoralizing Banner out, as well as having used Thunderclap. Effectively, they would only be, a melee class would then only be doing, something like 20% of damage incoming to me, and I would effectively then be reducing all damage incoming to me by a melee player. Just because I have Die by the Sword up by 100%, I'm reducing all damage incoming to me anyway by, now, assuming that I glyph this for 60%, plus an additional 20%, I'm reduced all damage incoming to me by 80%, and then if I want to be real ornery and I'm in defensive stance, I'm at basically a 100% damage reduction with all those cooldowns blown at the exact same time. What is this fellow doing? I'm going to mess him up. But that's basically been it. Thanks for watching. Oh, he went away. This has been Anbraxas, and look forward to my next video where I'm talking about Prot Warriors.